Amy mentioned a little bit about the Independent Women's Forum, and we've been around for over 20 years. We are the leading women's group on the right. We're run and staffed entirely by women, and again, we're focused on cultural and economic issues. The point of IWF really is to fight back against the progressives who want to expand government in the name of protecting we delicate women, and against the narrative, and this is the narrative we so often hear on the left, that women both want and benefit from big government programs. Some of our core issues, as Amy mentioned, are women in the work and work-life balance issues, as well as healthcare, energy, educational reform, regulations, taxes, and budget. Again, these are issues women care about, not just the issues that the left tells us that we care about. But today, again, I'm here to talk about a project that I'm really passionate about. It's a project I head up at the Culture of Alarmism, or at the Independent Women's Forum. I felt so passionate about it, I wrote a book. I think it's really important that women understand what the culture of alarmism is and how it impacts our economy, how it impacts jobs, how it impacts prices, and how it affects our choices in the marketplace. The Culture of Alarmism Project aims to bring some measure of relief to the constant drumbeat of danger, danger, danger that we hear so often in the mainstream media today. It's not just activist organizations that tell us that we're in danger. Politicians, even politicians at the highest levels of office. Who can forget the statements of our president during the sequestration battles of 2013, right? He warned that sequestration would result in unspeakable suffering. The elderly would starve. Kids would miss school and vaccinations, which made Jenny McCarthy very happy. Teachers would be laid off. Airplanes would crash midair due to the dearth of air traffic controllers. And don't bother calling for help because of the massive layoffs of police and firefighters. Fast forward to today, we're all still standing. We're still waiting for the wave to hit. Sequestration did not cause the great disasters that we thought. But sadly, much of the alarmism today isn't about budget deals and sequestration debates. Today, alarmism permeates every aspect of our culture. Americans are told to be on high alert about everything from common household cleaners, toys, plastic water bottles, canned food, their children's favorite pair of sandals, I'm not kidding, garden hoses, school supplies, playground equipment. But people need to understand that there's a reason why they're being told that these common everyday products are dangerous. Many of the groups that say this, say they're looking out for us. But what they're really hoping to do is scare us enough, because if you scare people enough, they're more likely to acquiesce to government regulations. That's why alarmism is so often a weapon wielded by the left. It was actually during a conversation with my husband one night that this connection between fear and regulation really clicked in my head. Now, I'm gonna read a little passage from my book. You can just think of this as a book on tape. You won't even have to read the book after I'm done. I'm kidding, it's only a few passages. So during dinner one evening, I was explaining to my husband, an IT security professional, that and this is a true story, that an environmental organization had just claimed children's raincoats contained dangerous toxins. They say it like that a lot, dangerous toxins. I half-jokingly suggested that he and I should design a new line of natural and chemical-free children's rain gear. I said this new smart, safe, and eco-friendly rain gear would be made of humanely slaughtered, oil-rubbed animal hides that had been stained with natural dyes like beet juice, cow urine, and Gamboo's tree resin. Terrified mothers who had just cleaned out their coat closets would be the company's first customers. In response, my husband simply muttered the word FUD. So, prodding for more information, he explained that the word stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that it is a term often employed in the IT security field to sell products to nervous business executives. In his words, there is no better way to sell a product than to say without it, your company will fail. He also explained that now more than ever, FUD is being used to influence the public and to promote government regulations, both in the IT sector and elsewhere. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt is used to influence the public and promote government regulations. So people see this every day. It's being employed the same way by activist organizations. If you tell people they should be fearful, they should be uncertain, they should have doubt, they will be more likely to acquiesce to government regulations. People are seeing this every single day. When they turn on the morning news, open their papers, or turn on the computer. One thing that I do is I keep links to outrageous newspaper headlines, and I have hundreds. Because when you're a policy nerd, this is what you do with your morning. And I just pulled a few. I pulled 7 or 8 of these that I like. And these are actual headlines in newspaper articles that I thought were particularly hysterical. Arsenic in apple juice. New report suggests widespread exposure. Your hand lotion is making you fat. Wouldn't that be great if it were that easy? GMOs, the ultimate killing machine. Multiple carcinogens found in baby shampoo. Crib mattresses found to be toxic. 100 ways you are failing as a parent. Yeah, only 100, exactly. 100, oh, sorry, I already got that one. Flame retardant chemicals, again, flame retardant chemicals endanger firefighters. And this is my absolute favorite. Eating chicken on the bone makes kids more aggressive. I put 3 stars next to that one. So these headlines and are funny, and we all laugh about them, and certainly I think for the reasonable people in this room, we can all kind of roll our eyes at these silly things. But when you consider these headlines and how they might impact a new mother, or someone who's just had a baby and sees that crib mattresses are toxic or something, is it any wonder that Americans have become nervous wrecks? And we really have. IWF has actually done some polling in this area, and our results are pretty shocking, and I thought they were pretty sad, actually. According to the poll that we did last year, 68% of women said the world is becoming a more dangerous, less healthy place. That simply is not true. It is empirically a fact that it is not true. And the alarmists don't want you to know this. They don't want you to know that the world is actually becoming a more safe place, a better place. And they don't want you to hear these facts. And these are just a few of the facts you rarely hear about. Cancer rates are down. Heart disease is down. We're living longer today than any time in history, and we are living those years healthier. We have more access to food and medication than any time in history. Crime is down. Literacy is up. Poverty is declining worldwide. I mean, by every single data point that you look at worldwide, the world is getting better. I mean, these are good stories, and yet we never hear about them. The poll also showed that 66% said they're not doing enough to provide themselves or their families healthy food and healthy products. This is standard mommy guilt. I'm sure we all feel it every day, and we're not going to. It's like cockroaches. It'll survive anything. It'll last forever. It'll always be there. But it's important to know that the alarmists love mommy guilt. They love to take advantage of it. They love to make women feel that they're not doing good enough, that they should be doing it differently. They should be doing more, or they should be doing it the way someone else tells them to do it. The poll also said that 83% of women, 83%, said they have trouble telling the difference between a legitimate scientific study and one designed to scare them. This is not surprising, given the incredible proliferation of junk science out there, which I'll get into later. And lastly, 87% of women, I mean, that's It's an incredible number. So they have a tough time finding sources of health and wellness information that they can trust. 87% when we live in the information age. I mean, you constantly have information at your fingertips, whether it's through your iPhone, your computer, you turn on the television. We can't get away from information, and yet a clear majority feel like they just can't figure out which is good information and which is bad. Each of these data points offers a rather grim view of the psyche of the modern American woman. But taken together, they represent the perfect incubator to create hysteria about the world we live in, the products we use, and the food we eat. Activists seem to understand that moms are overwhelmed, they're scared about the world they live in, and they don't know who to trust and are confused about conflicting information on these issues. And that's precisely why many of these activist groups target moms for campaigns of fear. We often think that that it's organizations, it's Greenpeace, it's the Environmental Working Group, Centers for Science and the Public Interest, and many of these other sort of consumer advocacy organizations that manage these campaigns of fear. And they do this very well, and they're still very influential. But there's a new, and I think mostly overlooked force that's on the scene that is, I think, scaring women even more today. And that force is what I call the activist mom, or the mommy blogger. Some of the most vocal and influential activists can be found sitting at their own kitchen tables, updating their own lifestyle magazine or lifestyle websites or mommy blogs, and writing for seemingly innocuous sites as health and wellness sites or parenting blogs. Many of these women aren't simply posting the latest recipes or diet information or how to get fit before bikini season. Many of them are sophisticated activists spreading terrifying and often completely incorrect information about food and health. Of course, we know the celebrity alarmist, Jenny McCarthy, who I consider sort of the queen alarmist, right? Jessica Alba, Fran Drescher, and Alicia Silverstone, who recently informed the American public that she protects her son from infectious diseases by feeding him miso soup. Who knew? Katie Couric has also joined this club of alarmists, along with Lori David, the producer of Fed Up. And these women certainly have a lot of influence. They have a huge pedestal on which they can stand and sort of spread the alarmism. But there's another group, and I find this fascinating. These are women who are not famous, but who are now becoming famous because of their alarmism. And two examples are the Food Babe. Is anyone familiar with the Food Babe? Okay, she's a blogger. Her name is Vani Hari. She calls herself the Food Babe. I call myself the Food Babe sometimes too. And Robin O'Brien, who is a mother and also a blogger. These women come off as likable and trustworthy. They tell moms that GMOs and chemicals with really long, scary names. That's what the Food Babe does. She says if you look at the ingredient list and there's an ingredient with a really long, scary, multisyllabic word, don't eat it. Okay, that's her scientific reasoning there. Okay. And they claim that these things cause autism and all sorts of allergies and all sorts of other terrifying things. Of course, these women don't bother to provide evidence. They don't bother to talk about the science behind their claims. And unfortunately, a lot of their followers don't ask them for the evidence. So they just sort of skip over that and make these outrageous and very frightening claims. What's truly alarming, and I'm up here talking about how we shouldn't be afraid of everything, but but there are things that are scary, and one of the alarming things to me is that these women have thousands of followers on Facebook and on Twitter, and they are thought of as these sages of information and really are looking out for women and looking out for women against big bad corporations. These women have also gotten quite media savvy and are now on the roster of a lot of morning television shows and daytime television shows, the very shows that are geared towards women. moms have become incredibly important to the alarmist movement. In fact, I would say women, particularly moms, they know that to get regulations on these products, they need to get moms involved in this. This makes this sort of a uniquely women's issue, which is why IWF is so interested in it. The reason activists want to get moms involved, activists know, and of course many of you in this room know, that 9 out of 10 women are the primary shoppers in their households. Women are the leading buyers from everything from light bulbs to batteries to groceries to minivans. They buy most everything. And women are the primary caretakers of children. So activists know that if they want to change the purchasing habits of Americans, if they want to create a consumer demand, they need to target women, particularly moms. And women, as I said, they're bombarded with these terrifying messages on a daily basis about their cleaners, their flame retardants in their children's pajamas, toxic garden hoses. I'll talk about that one in a bit. Children's raincoats. And the myths about dangerous levels of pesticide residue on the dirty dozen. I don't know if anyone in here has heard about, every spring the Environmental Working Group comes out with a list of the dirty dozen of, has anyone heard of? Okay, I love these people that you don't listen to this stuff, that's good. To anti-vaccine zealotry. And it's sad to say that a lot of these groups do trot out Hollywood actresses and these mommy bloggers who tell moms that they should support greater regulations on food, biotechnology, and other industries, because you deserve to know the truth about what you're feeding your kids. The implication, of course, being that big bad industry is harming your kids, and the only thing that can save you is big government. Children are often used as props by all sorts of activists because they know that if you suggest to a mother that what she's eating is going to harm her, she might change her habits, but she probably won't. But if you suggest to her that what she's buying is actually harming her child, that will generate a whole different reaction. And what they're looking for, and Amy, you mentioned this too, they're hoping that at some point, if we get people nervous enough, someone will say the magic words, which is something must be done. And that something usually comes in the form of regulations, restrictions, labeling requirements, taxes, and of course the goal of most of these activists, all-out bans on certain things, usually things that taste good and bring people joy. The organic food promoters and one anti-GMO and organic food promoter, Jeffrey Smith, he's sort of a well-known activist, he said this about moms. He said, quote, "Moms are the shoppers, and the shoppers will turn this around. Moms protect children. They may not be motivated to change their diet to protect themselves, but when they realize the potential damage to their children, most moms become what I call a tiger mom. They'll do what's necessary to protect their children, and this force of nature will win out." This strategy that Smith is highlighting makes women vulnerable to the allure of what I call the better safe than sorry principle. In regulatory terms, it's known as the precautionary principle, and it is the regulatory norm in Europe where you don't have to prove that something's harmful to regulate it. Here in the United States, you actually have to show that something is potentially harmful in order to regulate it. In Europe, you don't, and so that's why a lot of products are banned or manufacturers are not allowed to use them. I mean, that would be a killer for U.S. manufacturers if that happens, and that is their goal. This precautionary principle, or the better safe than sorry principle, I run into this every day. I don't think a lot of moms know what they're talking about is actually a regulatory system. But I find a lot of women who, when I talk to them about GMOs, when I talk to them about organic food, when I talk to them about, not to be afraid of, their children's toys, I hear a lot, well, I don't know. So better safe than sorry, or maybe it's just good that we ban these things just in case. That's a really dangerous kind of mindset to get into. In this book that I wrote, I'm critical of the activists and I'm critical of this system, but I try to be very sympathetic to moms because I think it's overwhelming. I think women are really overwhelmed with what they're hearing out there. And part of the other reason I'm sympathetic is because I actually was really terrified myself. After having my first child in 2007, I decided to stay home with my firstborn, and I started watching a lot of daytime television, The View, and Oprah. And I started reading a lot of mommy blogs and health and wellness blogs. And I would go to the bookstore and I would look at all the how-to. Really, it's not the how-to section, it's how you're doing it wrong section. Should I raise him gluten-free or paleo, or gosh, I can't decide. It was all very stressful. And it was startling because in addition to all the theories on the best way to raise a child, I was being told that nearly everything I was giving him was going to kill him. And I'm not talking about like tornadoes and hurricanes and escaped convicts and infectious diseases and bird flu. I mean, I'm talking about things like his pacifier, every single toy I bought him, his crib sheets, his crib mattress, the bumper that goes on the outside of the crib, the diapers, the butt cream, the baby shampoo, the baby lotion. And I'm not even getting to the food I was feeding him and my own killer instincts, like my own inability to parent this child. And I think a lot of us, are sort of familiar with the sanctimommies, who might give us a dirty look if we dare to give our child McDonald's or a non-organic apple or non-organic milk or a cookie. But many of these they kind of have a term now, sanctimommies. They not only feel like they need to look out for their own children, they need to look out for yours too. They feel the need to evangelize beyond their own family. And this is a natural outgrowth of what is commonly called helicopter parenting, right? We know about helicopter parenting, the need to sort of hover over your child in case they fall. And it's sort of gone into now how food is produced. People now feel the need to control everything that enters their child's system. Of course, what frustrates me about a lot of these women and what they don't know is that they can be saving a lot of money if they didn't waste it on these more expensive foods. And again, I don't want to insult anyone here. If you want to buy organic food, that's perfectly fine if you can afford it. But the idea of telling women that organic food is more nutritious or is better, that's where it's not correct. It's simply not true that organic food is any more nutritious than conventionally grown food. And by conventional, I mean food that has been exposed to pesticides or some sort of synthetic chemical. While there is no single nutritional difference between organic food and conventional food, the organic industry itself has for years been saying the opposite. According to a new report by Academics Review, which is made up of independent scientists who reviewed a bunch of science of both organic food and conventionally grown food, they said, quote, consumers have spent hundreds of billions of dollars purchasing premium-priced organic food based on false or misleading perceptions about comparative product food safety, nutrition, and health attributes. In other words, we've been lied to by the organics industry. I mean, this is a $28 billion industry, hardly a small farmer with, a roadside produce stand. But the organic industry executives aren't dumb. I mean, they know that the main reason a woman would spend double for a radish or an apple or a strawberry is because she thinks it's a safer product. And so this is simply a marketing tactic being used. But I feel bad for instance, I can't afford to buy organic food, and I certainly feel bad for people who live under the poverty line who might be under the impression that the only way to provide their children healthy food is to buy the really expensive food. I mean, that's a message that's come. There are a lot of unintended consequences that come with that. If they think that conventional food is somehow dangerous because of pesticides, why not just eat Cheetos? So I think we really have to be careful and really understand how this marketing is also used on the other side to scare women. I think it's also important to know that when you talk about pesticides on fruits and vegetables, one of the main reasons people eat organic food is they say, well, I want to avoid the pesticides. But residues on pesticides are incredibly low. They're so trace, in fact, that they're actually hard to detect in your bloodstream, in your urine, once you eat the fruit. In fact, so they always say if you want to avoid pesticides on strawberries, eat the organic, but my child could eat 1,000 strawberries in one sitting every single day and still stay below the allowable pesticide level. I mean, the EPA sort of tracks this stuff. So, I mean, my child eats a lot, but he could eat 1,000 strawberries. I mean, and if moms know this, it sort of puts it in perspective. This is the information that will help women purchase things based on price rather than fear, rather than a false message of safety. But it goes way beyond food. Today, even the most harmless-looking things are now portrayed by these groups as silent killers. I give some examples in the book. One is, this is another one of my favorites. I'd been watching a news program, and the newscaster came on, and he had very serious look on his face, and he said, "We have a very serious story tonight about a silent killer in your backyard." He said it's a story that will concern you all, that garden hoses may have toxic chemicals. They're made with toxic chemicals, and the water that comes out of them is then toxic to your children. So, and then he added in, you may want to not allow your child to get any water go into their mouths when they jump through the sprinkler in the summer. So I wrote about this one too, and I just want to, again, my book on tape moment here, but because when I first read that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's really serious. I sort of agreed with it at first until I thought about it. So I said I was lucky that I had the time to look into the story and question its merit. I was able to ignore the hysteria and consider the facts, and those facts were reassuring. Most garden hoses are indeed made of polyvinyl chloride, which is toxic if consumed in large quantities. In other words, if you drink a bucket of it, you will die. So yet it is impossible for a human to consume enough water to reach toxic levels of PVC exposure. Why is this impossible? It's because the amount of chemical, and nobody's arguing that the chemical does leach. When the water goes through, some of that chemical does leach into the water. Nobody's arguing with that, okay? But when the amount of chemical that leaches into the water is so minuscule that a person would have to consume massive amounts of garden hose water in order for it to be a problem. And if that person attempted to drink the amount of water required to reach PVC toxicity, they would first die of water overdose. Their stomachs would explode. They simply could not get enough in their bodies. And yet, there was a whole campaign about this. And mommy bloggers went nuts. And there were calls for regulations on the garden hose industry. Now, this was kind of, it didn't really go too far. You can get kid-free garden hoses, toxic-free garden hoses. And I actually thumbs up to the entrepreneur who says, I'm going to take advantage of this, and I'm going to make toxic-free garden hoses. But let me see. So as you can see, we are awash in crazy claims from everything under the sun. But I do think that there's a way to fight back. You were asking about fighting back. How do we fight back against this nonsense? I think the most important thing is that the culture of alarmism be exposed for what it is. A lot of these groups like to say they're looking out for you, they're looking out for your kids. It needs to be exposed as a strategy to grow government, to kill industry and innovation, and to control people's individual choices about the way they live, the way they eat, the way they raise their kids. This is critical, especially for women, because as mentioned earlier, our polling confirms that a large majority of women don't like policies designed to control their choices that they make in the grocery store and how to raise kids. So I think there's an opportunity there. Women don't like these kinds of nanny state policies. So I think it will resonate with women when you tell them that these policies are really there to get them to accept regulations. Second, I think women need to be told the costs associated with these regulations and that these costs will be passed on to the consumer, a consumer that's already struggling with rising food costs and a sluggish economy. Lastly, women need advice on how to figure out how to find legitimate information about health and wellness and how to sift through the mountains of information they find on a regular basis. And I have a few suggestions on this, which I go through in my book, and I'm not going to do my book on tape. I'm just going to quickly go through them. It's the last chapter. I suggest that women tune out and turn off. And I don't mean become a hermit and throw out your iPhone, but stop clicking on the headlines that sound terrifying. I mean, stop clicking on them. And it's not just moms. I see a lot of men in this room. I'm sorry if you feel like my entire speech has excluded you. Apparently, I'm just now realizing this. But anyone, just don't, and these headlines are designed to get you to click on it. I even see headlines that say, "You won't believe this." And then you have to click on it to find out what you won't believe. I mean, it takes some practice, but just, don't click on things and really limit your time reading these things. I think it's really important that we reject conspiracy theories and become a skeptic. Alarmists like to tell women that big food, big ag, big pharmaceutical, anything big. And this actually resonates on the right a lot because we hate big government and we hate crony capitalism and we hate all this stuff. And this actually resonates with me a bit. But we have to reject this idea that businesses are actually trying to harm their consumer base. I mean, businesses actually don't get anything from killing people, okay? So I think it's important that we sort of reject that. I mean, Katie Couric's her new movie coming out, Fed Up, they make claims that literally the food industry is there to catch you in their web, get you addicted to sugar, get you addicted to bad food, tell you to sit down on the couch and never move again. I mean, this is absurd. But I think sometimes it's on both the right and left. People can kind of get caught up in these conspiracy theories. Beware the mommy blogs. I'm friends with mommy. I'm considered a mommy blogger, and I am friends with many of them. But many of these women are well-intentioned, but they are not doctors, and they have no medical background. And it's really important. Robin O'Brien, a woman that I mentioned earlier, her child had a terrible allergic reaction to something and had to be rushed. It was terrifying for her. And she has turned this experience into this crusade. And she has actually, the medical and professional organizations have distanced themselves from Robin O'Brien because of the completely wacky things that she says. And so I think it's really important to choose what you read online carefully and be careful about your sources. The last one is progress is good. I call this the masterpiece theaterification of sort of the American public, where we think everything is like Downton Abbey and Masterpiece Theater and All Creatures Great and Small and Upstairs, Downstairs, and all these great shows that took place where people had full sets of teeth and looked like they smelled good and showered daily and didn't die in childbirth. And, life was hard 100 years ago. It was hard for women. It was hard for men. Life was short. It was tough. And so I think it's important. Sometimes you hear people say, we need to return to a simpler time where we all grew our own gardens in the backyard and we didn't go to the grocery store. I mean, I get so annoyed when people suggest that I should make 14 stops to the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, because there's nothing more fun than getting children out of car seats 14 times. I mean, I love a grocery store. I love that I can buy my light bulbs and my batteries and my diaper wipes and my food in one place. And so, we have to remember that this progress is good. Looking back sort of romantically at the old days is really kind of silly. In closing, I'd like to say, I've spent a lot of time talking about polling and regulations and specific alarmist claims and sort of the consequences of alarmism. But one thing I also need to mention about alarmism, The constant grinding, exhausting worrying that so many women do today, parents do today, takes away from the fun of being a parent. It takes away from the fun of being a human being. If you're worried that, was that tablecloth treated with some chemical, or, am I going to, is something going to harm me? Have I eaten something that's going to harm me? I mean, this takes away from the fun of just living life. That is a much harder, it's very easy to measure the economic costs of these things, lost jobs, lost consumer choice. It's harder to measure the costs of the loss of fun in our culture, and that's I think the biggest consequences of the culture of alarmism. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions.